Well, you can't trust County.
Stop. So do you know how long is the episode's like, what, an hour, kind of like us, or 2?
Yeah. No, we only shoot. I think we're only going to shoot for like an hour and 90 minutes. And they'll probably cut it down.
Oh my God.
We'll
Wait,
see.
Can we tell the creepers? Did we say
Go
their
ahead.
name?
Yeah, go.
Silas is going to be on Very Delta doing a Halloween episode, which
I'm so excited.
I'm like, now I feel like I've become so much more invested in Delta just like through knowing you. Like over the last year, followed her, get all of her clips now, like show up pretty frequently for me. So I am freaking out. And I think I told you, did I tell you this? And I told Garrett, and I was like, you're going to die. And he was like, shut up. He's so excited for you.
Oh, that's fun. Wait, oh my God. Well, I'll see if I
Yeah.
can get like Delta to film something for him, or like a little we'll make a video for him or
Oh
something.
my God. I hope he doesn't watch this. I'm going to be like, don't watch this week's episode. He would.
Does he watch
lose his mind.
regularly? He watches CreepTime?
It depends. You know what? He watched our premiere. He watched the season 4 premiere, which
Everybody watched the premiere. People who like I know for a fact don't watch our show, they were like, oh, I caught the premiere. And I'm like, interesting.
well, he had
How
first of all,
peculiar.
how peculiar, bitch. He had 135. Just send it straight off the gate. My God.
At least it's in the upfront. It's early.
I know. He had such lovely things to say, by the way. He was like, I didn't know. He was like, it's been a minute since I watched one of y'all's episodes, but I didn't realize it was a cinematic experience. And I was like, well, that was special.
for that episode, for that episode only.
That was very
I'm like, don't
special.
be getting no expectations that we're going on foot anywhere anytime soon. It's a lot.
Listen, I actually would, though. I would love to figure out a case. And it's kind of sad because I know I already did Chandra Levy, and that would have been a great one to like go up into Rock Creek or something and do my own on foot case, but I'm sure I'll find one eventually.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are so many out of DC. Any major city in the U.S., there's going to be something.
Yeah.
A lot of history. I didn't tell you actually. I went by when I was in Chicago. I drove by the John Wayne Gacy house, or where it used to be, with my siblings.
No way.
We were on our way to the airport, and it just happened to be like just off the path, I guess. So my brother took us off the highway. And the house has been demolished, so there's another house that's there now. And the people who live there definitely don't want people coming, I should say, because when you look it up on Google Maps, the old address, it's blurred out. So they're trying to like disguise it, but I think that's a bit of the Barbra Streisand effect. Creepers, let me know what you think. We're like, they try to hide it so you become more interested in being like, well, girl, what's there? I'm going to go see it.
For a second, I thought you were going to say you went to the bar where he was supposed to hang out a lot. It's like the L&L Tavern.
No, I don't even think I know very much about that part of the story.
I should have told you. That should have been one of my Chicago recs to you. But that Garrett took me there one time. It's called L&L Tavern. It's supposedly where he would, right after he would kill somebody, he'd go up and sit at the bar and schmooze. And he was a regular and everybody loved him.
It's so eerie, though, to be like in that neighborhood. And I'm sure it's changed a lot from that time, but it is very quiet and suburban and picturesque. I would never drive down there and imagine that something really sinister happened.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Sinister. Well, speaking of sinister, this case...
New episodes coming this Friday.
Oh, are they?
No.
No.
We'll see.
I was like, baby.
Actually, you know what I do want to do this year for the Halloween costumes, because I always do like a big involved like makeup thing. I'm like, girl, I should be filming that. I think I'm going to do like very amateur get ready with me, very amateur makeup tutorials as I'm building the costumes. And then it'll be right before I jump on with you.
You absolutely should. There's one in particular for me that I'm like, that would be kind of sick if I could film a get ready with me, but I'm so scared of it going poorly. You just gotta make a joke of it while you're going. You gotta be like, well, it's really patchy and not working out the way we hoped, but we're here together. And baby, we're here together today. Speaking of that, I'm like ready to dive in because I think this one's going to be pretty dense. Honestly, I was like looking at my research before we got on. I was like, God, I kind of forgot I went a little hard on this one, but I'm excited to unpack it with you. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to share our Canva doc and Creepers. This will be up on Reddit. You guys know the drill.
Also, one thing to say about Reddit, just since I know a lot of people asked after the Elisa Lam episode, they were like, why can't you put pictures in the episodes? I think we should clarify this in the upfront.
Yeah.
The reason being is because we don't own the license or copyright to those photos. So with Elisa Lam, it was a special case where we really wanted to come back with a bang. And I think we were willing to sacrifice if that was an episode that couldn't be monetized or that Spotify would even take down or they would flag. We were willing to test the limit on that. Yeah, cut our losses.
Cut our losses.
But as a general practice, everything that we put out through CreepTime, we own. You know, the theme music was written by us and everything you see on screen is just us. So that's the practice of why we put things on Reddit versus on the actual show. Just for clarity, for everyone who asked.
Also, I think it's kind of nice on Reddit because then you can, I mean, at least I saw with the Bumblebee Road murders, people just interacting with each other like crazy, throwing
That's
back
my
theories.
hope. Yeah, that's why I love Reddit is because, you can go there and traffic there to look at the pictures, but also what a perfect platform to actually have a conversation.
Totally. Well, you got the link?
I'm like, you got the link, baby.
You got the link.
I'm like, you got
we
the link,
going
honey. Well, do you know me? In my head, I'm like, all I want to do is ask you if you watched the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City premiere last night because there was
didn't.
Damn, okay. Have you watched it? I forget.
Yeah, actually, Mel surprisingly got me hooked into it.
Okay, because the premiere last night, they did like a whole Blair Witch Project intro, and it was hilarious. It was so funny, and I was like wanting to text you, but I was like, I don't think he watches Salt Lake City.
No, I haven't been watching a lot of TV except for Project Runway, just as like filler as I'm working. But I was at that thing last night. Remember the Venice Club or whatever?
Yeah. How was it?
That was amazing. I was so great.
Awesome.
Thank you to Ashley and Kalpana who was there with us. But it was a talk with this guy named Modi, who is this huge creator behind some of like the biggest shows you've ever heard of, House of Cards, Ozarks. Like he's made like major shows, and he was basically giving a talk to like a very select group of us, and he was talking about the creator economy and how he is so firm in his belief that creators are going to be where Hollywood is shifting in like 10 years. He had this it was very validating to hear like the way that he saw the creator economy. He was like, you are everything that Hollywood has in terms of talent, but you're like miniature entrepreneurs. You're completely self-reliant people.
Totally.
It's crazy.
I'm forgetting who the heck it was. Oh my God, I was watching an interview the other day and it was in my head. I'm like, was it Uta Hagen? Which is a Creepers. That's a deep cut. That's like
Uta Hagen.
That's her acting coach.
You could have said anyone. I would never have guessed Uta Hagen.
But I swear to God, it was her. And it just came up on my like explore page, and it was her talking about. She was like doing one of her seminars from way back in the day. It was like shot on like the grainiest footage I've ever seen. But one of the actors was saying, how down on themselves they were. They couldn't get anything and whatever. And she was talking about how like the best. She was like, it's time you make your own work. And that's where the best, she was like, normally that's where the best stuff comes from. The things that we, it's the creators that decide one day to just say, screw it, I'm going to go make something of myself. And those become our like household names. So that's funny that he said that because it's true.
That's also the exact way he kind of framed it too. He was like, you are like the differentiator between antiquated Hollywood. He was like, there are people that sort of wait for the chance forever to be given to them. And then there are people like you who are just different. And I was like, this is the most validating like industry conversation I've ever heard from somebody who's like pretty high up.
Yeah. And there's something that's so, I don't know, attractive, I guess, about somebody like once they've really kind of like fought through and gotten to that part of their career where they have created the thing and now everybody's recognizing it. There's like a level of just like, I don't know, gumption there that's like so attractive to me as a consumer. I'm like, oh my God, like the backstory of that is always so interesting to me. And then I have like immediate respect normally for their work.
Yeah, it's nice to feel like they're in control of wherever the vision of what they create is going. I think that's cool. I understand what you mean by that's appealing or attractive because you really just want people to tell you what's next. Like what's coming next. And creators are the people who kind of do that right now.
I love phrasing it like that. Many like entrepreneurs. It's true. Or just
he was like, we've just never seen like a talent economy like this of people who are entirely self-reliant on themselves as a business, who are also the face of the business.
It's amazing.
I was stoked, very stoked to be there.
Yeah,
happy.
yeah.
And I'm going to another one with Ashley. She was like, come to all of them. And I'm like,
oh, fun. Oh, so they happen constantly.
Yeah, it's really like a club. It's like a private club, which the membership is crazy, but they have like, you can access like a ton of their studios there because they have like podcasting studios. They have like a cooking studio with like all multicam. It's like a television set in all these different rooms. And they host these like industry networking events. It was really cool to be there.
Baby, I swear to God, though, if I find out you're accidentally in the Illuminati, I'm going to be on the next flight out.
I'm sure the membership fees would be much more ridiculous than what this is.
A whole other level of corruption. Oh, man. Well, speaking of corruption, this story we're about to get into
I'm leaving
today.
the show.
I'm like, I'm gone. Here are my papers. No. The case that I am bringing to you today is probably the most loaded with county corruption and tales from locals that I personally have ever covered. And it just made it so much more real to me as I was doing the research that in small towns, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, people shouldn't be able to get away with as much because in theory, don't people talk more? And like, certainly from doing this research, it was just interviews and people, what I've heard and gossip and the local lore and the rumor mill and all that stuff. I'm like, how is this case still unsolved? And all these people are talking about it. So in the case of Sandy Ray, a 17-year-old from Shawnee, Oklahoma, there have been so many people that have discussed different conspiracy theories with actual names and horrific facts about folks from the area, and still we're no closer to solving her case. On a Wednesday night, this complicated young woman that you and the creepers will come to know was last seen by her first cousin leaving a bowling alley, supposedly to go hang out with some friends. She had even asked her cousin to come along with her, but was she really attending an innocent party, or was she on her way to something much more sinister? The people of Shawnee have their theories, and I'd argue the majority of the town would say she was about to meet with someone or a group of people that did not have her best interest at heart. And to be honest, that is putting it mildly, because what I came to find out is that in certain pockets, Shawnee could be a very dark place. There was a lot of drug-related crime, cocaine was prevalent, but there was something much worse that laid beneath the town's surface. And Sandy had unfortunately found herself right in the middle of it. September 19th, 1984 was the last day she has ever been seen alive. To this day, nobody knows where her body may be. Could it be buried right in Shawnee, right beneath the locals' noses? A lot of people believe so. People also believe she was disposed of in some really disgusting ways, though, again, it's never been proven. But one thing is certain, I don't think people in Shawnee think that she is still alive. And I think most people think she was silenced, and I would like to give her a voice again. I will preface that this case relies heavily on local testimony, and I really do try to lead with facts. So this is slightly uncomfortable territory for me, but I just felt such a strong desire to cover her case because I think it speaks to the fact that when locals are doing more research or they seem to know a heck of a lot more about police, that's a serious problem. And sometimes you just connect with a story, or you feel like it's one that's like surrounded by such negligence, so you just have to cover it no matter what. So I think the more awareness, even if it's murky, that we can bring to this is something that Sandy and every victim of corruption deserves. So before we launch into the case of 17-year-old Sandy Ray, let me just say, welcome back to season 4. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, this is my first case. I'm leading back into the season.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah, but I'm so excited to be back for our season 4. I think you started us off with a bang. And if you are new here, welcome to CreepTime. I am your host, Stu. Alongside me, I have my amazing co-host, Silas Dean.
Aww.
And we drop new episodes every single Friday where we cover true crime, unsolved cases of the paranormal. And if you are new here, we're so happy that you found us, first of all. But you can go and listen to us on Spotify, Apple. You can watch us also on Spotify. That's a new feature. If you haven't listened to podcasts on Spotify in the last, year or so, that's a new feature where you can watch us there. You can also watch us on YouTube and comment, leave us reviews, hopefully positive ones, babies. And also, we've got a pretty big premium catalog. So if you really like us, you can definitely check that out after you've listened to a couple of regular episodes. And also, if you're looking for a little bit of levity after these heavy cases, go on to our after show, which is CreepTime After Dark, which is just the two of us completely unhinged. But I swear to God, you'll have a come down. You'll feel
uncensored,
lighter.
unfiltered.
That's right.
Unraveled.
That's right. And if you like it, please leave more words for us to cover. Our word bank is pretty unhinged at the moment, but I'd like to keep that going. So, but with that, baby, are you ready to launch into the case of Sandy Ray?
I am. I really don't know anything about this case. I don't even think I recognize the name.
It's very unknown. I will tell you, and I feel like my research is very extensive, but it relied pretty heavily just on a couple of sources. There's really not a lot of public records about it. And I think after we go through it, you will understand why.
Okay.
So before we unpack the night of September 19th, let me just give you a little bit of a backstory on Sandy because she is a very complicated character. On one hand, she was supposedly very, very popular and outgoing. And I read a lot of people described her as bubbly, fun. She was supposedly the girl that all of the guys wanted to go out with. But on the other hand, she ran with sort of a rough crowd. She was a known party girl, and many people knew that she did drugs, specifically marijuana and cocaine. Also interesting, by the time she was 17, she actually had already moved out of her family home and was living with a friend, a girl named Christy Morell, and her mom. And up until that point, she had lived at home with her mom, Carol, and her older sister, Michelle. I believe I've got a bunch of pictures of Sandy on that first page, but I think Carol, her mom, is down in the bottom left. But she she lived with Carol, and then she lived with her sister, Michelle, who at that point was older. She had already moved out. And then she had a younger sister named Brandy, and they had a stepfather, a guy named Jim Wells. And her mom and her biological dad had divorced when she was pretty young, and I don't think he was in the picture anymore. I also read that she had lived with her boyfriend, who was a guy named Danny McLeod, prior to moving in with Christy, but their relationship started to get a little bit rocky, to say the least. So that might have also been the reason why she moved in with Christy, but it's not totally confirmed. But I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
But I feel like it always just paints an interesting picture. And I think it was Kelly Disney that we talked about, that she had also done something similar.
I was just about to say, I was like, so far this almost tracks 1-to-1 with her story.
Yeah. It's very similar. But I think we mentioned in the Kelly Disney episode, it's always kind of bizarre and telling when somebody that's 17 that still lives in the same, especially like rural town like Shawnee, and isn't living under their parents' roof. It leaves a little bit of like something to be desired. You want to know more about that person and why.
Yeah, of course you question the relationship with your parents, or like what's really going on in the house that maybe led to this.
Yes. Now, Sandy had a cousin named Johnny, and I relied on his testimony pretty heavily during this research. And again, he said that despite Sandy running with a noticeably tough crowd that did a lot of drugs, she was ironically very accomplished. She made great grades, and she had apparently even been elected the class treasurer right before she went missing. So she's just a very interesting profile to me, and I think it's something that we should pay attention to. But do you have any feelings just looking at her on the first page?
Let me take another look at her. I had swapped back to looking at you, but it's really difficult to say. Shawnee is in which part of the country again, did you say?
It's in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. It reminded me just sonically of Pawnee, like Pawnee, Indiana.
Pawnee. It's probably pretty similar.
Well, that was the visual I was going off of. But as far as like looking at her, there's not really too much that I can pull right now. But she is an interesting character. The idea that maybe she was a good student or a strong student or had high grades. And it's almost making me think of another case that we've covered. And I'm forgetting the name of the young girl. I can't give anything away about the case without like spoiling the reveal of the case. But I think we've seen this pattern before of a young girl from a small town who makes good grades or is seemingly like a well-accomplished or good kid who just gets mixed up with the wrong people.
I almost also kind of wonder if it's like those are the kids that think, well, I'm smart enough or I'm capable enough to kind of like get away with this. And that's not to say anything bad about Sandy. I just think sometimes that certain people at an intelligence level, it doesn't even cross their minds that like they're getting mixed up in the wrong stuff because they think they'll get out of it eventually.
Yeah. Do we know much about how bad her drug issue supposedly was? Or was she just casually doing like smoking weed and doing coke?
So I believe she just casually did. I think she probably did marijuana the most out of these drugs, and we will
so
definitely.
The phrase "doing marijuana" is always so funny to me.
Doing marijuana. Well, yeah,
she did do the devil's lettuce, as far as I know.
What's the like older phrase for pot? It's like a hashish.
Hash? Oh, I always thought it was like smoking dope.
Smoking dope. Yeah. So I think that was her preferred drug. I think it was also her gateway. And yes, we do know a lot about her and the drug scene, which we will get into. But I think it was mostly marijuana at first and drinking. And then that sort of led her into these parties. And then she started developing an addiction to cocaine, which, by the way, I feel like cocaine was sort of like king in the 80s and people didn't know just how bad it was. So I think that's also something to take into consideration here.
Sure.
So let's jump to the day that Sandy went missing. So just to recap, it's a Wednesday night in 1984, and Sandy was hanging out at Windsor Bowling Alley, where her cousin, whose name I believe is Jerry, so she's got Jerry and Johnny as cousins, but Jerry was working a shift that night. And according to him, he said that she was getting ready to go to a party that night, and she told him about this. Also, I just want to keep in mind, it's a school night. It's a Wednesday night. But he basically says to her, I'd love to come with you, but no thanks. I got to finish my shift here. I got to wake up early for school tomorrow. So I'll just catch you next time. Now, it wasn't clear to him if she was leaving on her own accord or if someone was coming to pick her up. He always thought it was the latter. But one thing he can never get out of his mind is seeing her turn back to wave as she exited, never to be seen again. He remembered that she got there at around 8 o'clock that night. She made a phone call shortly after arriving and then left in what he calls a hurry at around 8:30 p.m. I don't even know if she actually bowled or if she was just there to hang out and stall before getting picked up. The only other context of this evening I found was that she had been seen earlier at a convenience store, according to an anonymous witness, sometime between 7 to 8 p.m. buying cigarettes. And Christy, the friend that she was living with, also said that she had left the house at around 7 p.m. that night. So that all lined up. Christy had also opted to not go out this night, which to me might have explained why Sandy wanted a buddy to hang out with. And so she thought of her cousin at the bowling alley. Now, what I will say is Potawatomi County Police, that's Shawnee's County Police, have been shockingly very tight-lipped when it comes to releasing information or files about this case. So again, I'm just getting that out of the way now because you'll know why in a bit. But one of the only public records we have on this case is that Carol Ray, her mom, filed an official missing persons report 2 days later on the 21st.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have more to say?
No, I'm just piecing it together in real time. So it was 48 hours after she may have disappeared that the missing persons report was filed. And to clarify, this girl did live with someone at the time.
Yes, she lived with
would have noticed on day one if she was not there, did not return.
Yes, very good point. Yes.
Okay.
Again, her cousin Johnny has probably been the most heavily involved in her case other than local journalists. But he uncovered something really interesting, and he didn't state when he made this discovery or spoke to this witness. But from what I could glean, it seemed like this person came forward fairly recently, like in the last 4 years.
Oh, wow.
But he made contact with someone who claimed to have seen Sandy on the 21st alive 2 days after she disappeared, and their eyewitness testimony states she was at a convenience store. Now, this person was allegedly a friend of Sandy's at the time and wanted to remain anonymous when she gave this tip to Johnny, but apparently on the 21st, she had seen Sandy in the back of a green Chevy Impala. She said that she saw Sandy being held against her will in the back of this car. She said she didn't recognize them, but there were 2 men in the car as well. So supposedly there was one guy sitting in the front and then there was one guy in the back seat with Sandy. And she states that the moment that she made eye contact with Sandy, Sandy started screaming for help and the 2 immediately covered her mouth and pinned her down in the back of the car. Oh my God. Yeah. And she said that she could tell that Sandy recognized her, which is the only reason she thinks she started to scream. It was like she thought she might actually have a chance to get away.
Yeah.
And by the way, just to clarify, this was at around like 7 a.m., according to this witness. Now, right around this time, another car pulls up. And according to the witness, it was Sandy's known boyfriend at the time, a guy named Danny McLeod, who I think I mentioned earlier, and Danny's best friend, another guy named Glenn Bird. And remember those two names, Danny and Glenn, because they're going to show up a lot in this case.
Okay.
So this witness states that the two boys, they pull up next, they roll down their windows and they start talking to these guys as if they were in cahoots of some sort. And the witness knew something immediately sketchy was happening and ran inside, called Potawatomi County Police and told them what she saw. But by the time she got back outside, both cars were gone. She actually claimed she got right back in her car and she sped off trying to find either one of the vehicles, but couldn't catch up to either one. And according to Sandy's cousin, police did not take this tip seriously at the time. And according to the witness, she ended up having to move from Shawnee shortly after because she started getting harassed by Danny McLeod and Glenn Bird, which from my research, I would argue they were like death threats to her. She said that they said if she so much made a peep about what they saw, she would face the same fate as Sandy. Now, what do you make of that witness statement?
It's just shocking, but like I'm trying to piece together like what is happening and like what the motive is here. Oh God, it's so I know it's the bystander effect, and I know when like seeing these things, I've witnessed terrible things go down in parking lots where I have literally seen. When I was in Vegas, I saw a woman get grabbed by the neck and thrown into a car.
Oh my God!
When I was first moving to Los Angeles, I'd never been to Vegas before, and you freeze up. And the first thing I thought to do, I was like, don't freeze. Get the make and model of the car, get the plate. That's the first thing to look for. Go for the plate. And I started following the car and then he sped off. He was too fast, but I was on the phone with 911 at the time. So it was reminding me of that experience of like when you're seeing something go down that is so unusual and so violent, you don't really know how to take stock of what you're actually seeing or the details that would be relevant to police. But it almost sounds like in this case, police are corrupt to the point where they're not even taking that seriously.
They're not even taking it seriously. And I had in the back of my head you talking about, like in my mind, like, why is this person coming forward? Like, I think this person actually talked with Johnny in like 2020 during COVID. But I was thinking of you while I was doing the research, like, well, does this really have legs? Is this credible? And I felt like by the end, it was because I've come to know Danny and Glenn pretty well at this point, or so I think. And I would not put it past them to actually have harmed this young woman. She was like 17 too. She was Sandy's age. I would not have put it past them to actually do something to her and have harassed her at school and told her that, they'd kill her if she said anything. So that's really the only reason that I was sort of like, okay, I want to include that because if it is true, that's super powerful and who are they talking to? But B, I felt like it did have some credibility.
No, I completely think it does. I don't think it's very normal that people would make something up like that, considering it's like so violent what they're describing. It's real kidnapping. Unless we're painting some picture where this girl has some reason to try to paint these two in a terrible light as revenge or something. But I don't know that that's what's happening here.
I don't think she did. I think it was just friend, acquaintance of Sandy's, and she saw what went down and she acted quickly too, which is what made me think she might have actually had some credibility here too. But yeah, I don't think there was any sort of reason to get back at Danny or Glenn. I don't think she knew them super, super well. So
and then it is confirmed that she did leave town shortly after.
She moved, which is to me also, there's some weight there. But if you can believe it, the case quickly went cold, which I'm sure you and I can after all the freaking 70s and 80s cases we did this summer with like our premium cases where girls would go missing and they were like, oh, it's just a runaway. I was like, I swear to God, if that's what's happening with this case. And of course it was. But this case is going to be, again, county corruption on a whole nother level. For the last several decades, Johnny has really been the one that's been building up the majority of the information, speaking to people. And I just mentioned that again because it's just the conundrum. Police are basically incentivized at this point to not do anything because much of what is known about this case is just hearsay that's been passed around for well over 30 years. And that leads me to one of those pieces of hearsay that ties someone who was good friends with local police to this case. Johnny was able to uncover, and he found this out from, again, Carol, Sandy's mom, that Danny McLeod, her boyfriend, Danny McLeod's dad had borrowed Carol's car the night that Sandy disappeared. And when I first read that, I was like,
What?
wait, why? But supposedly, I guess because their kids were in a relationship, the McLeods and the Rays had become close friends and would do things like this for each other.
Okay.
And I didn't see in the research why Mr. McLeod didn't have his own vehicle, but supposedly he needed it for a couple of days to haul some stuff. And the only thing that I could piece together was that he owned a pawn shop. So maybe it was like a larger item, but he did in fact borrow her car the day that Sandy went missing. She added that when he returned the car, there was a bunch of dirt in the trunk that she didn't remember being in there initially. But her husband, who was Sandy's stepfather, Jim Wells, worked on an oil rig at the time. And a lot of times the car would be really dirty. So at first, thought didn't even cross her mind that something nefarious might have happened. She just thought, okay, this is like how Jim keeps his car. But the obvious thread to pull on here, and the one that Johnny's been investigating, is that Danny's dad, Jim McLeod, could have taken part in a cover-up for his son. And I just want to call out how ballsy that would have been to borrow the car of the parent of your son's girlfriend that he's potentially just killed. But maybe that was part of the plan. Like, it's almost so unbelievable, and they did it so often. They would exchange things with each other that he thought he could just get away with it. And technically, he returned the car before Sandy's mom even realized that she was missing. So in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, maybe this was just something that I don't really know how this is possible, but like put 2 and 2 together weeks after Sandy was officially filed as a missing person.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, this man, Jim McLeod, who I think I have a picture of on the bottom of the second page, he passed away only a couple of years ago. So we will never know from his point of view what actually happened. I also think Johnny tried several times to speak with him and he refused. But there's additional odd rumors that also tie us back to the McLeods, as well as that other friend of Danny's, Glenn Bird, and his family. And just a refresher, Glenn Bird is Danny's best friend and supposedly was with him at that convenience store sighting of Sandy 2 days after she disappeared.
And also participated in the threatening of the witness.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Yes. So Johnny spoke with a girl named Jamie, who is related to Glenn Bird by marriage. I tried to break this down. I believe it's her husband's mom is Glenn Bird's first cousin, which is very confusing, but she claims...
All those words you just said, none of it landed in my brain.
None of it lands. All you need to know is she's related to Glenn Bird by marriage.
you just spoke in a bunch of like relative terms and I was like, they're related.
I had to actually write this down for myself. As she was describing it, I was like, wait, but I believe...
there are a lot of like little people like slightly connected to the story, which does kind of complicate the web a bit.
It's a very complicated story, but again, it kind of goes back to my like top line. I'm like, how have we not solved this? There's so many people in this town that are connected to this case that know things, but it's just, I really do believe by the end, you'll come to understand just how corrupt Potawatomi County Police really is. But anyway, so yes, let me see where I was in my research. Yeah, so husband's mom is Glenn Bird's cousin. Hella confusing. But she claims that Glenn Bird's grandfather told her mother-in-law on his deathbed to never speak of Sandy's case to anybody, which to me indicates that the Birds obviously knew something more. That, again, that's just rumor.
Can you just imagine that? I mean, I don't even know if these people were religious, but I always imagine deathbed confessions. And I'm like, do they believe in some way that absolves them before they're about to die and whatever they think is going to happen to them? I find that so psychologically interesting that they, I don't know if they think that it helps because they're still, what they're sharing is to maintain the secret. They're not confessing to a priest and they're not, I don't know, making amends by like sharing it with, people like law enforcement or something. They're just telling someone else to keep the secret up and then dying.
And I honestly feel like in the case of the Bird family, I don't even know if it was so much absolving themselves or the grandfather if he had covered up or helped Glenn cover it up. It seemed like it was more like, hey, don't ever talk about that. Like before I die, I'm sort of the patriarch of this family and I've made sure that everybody has kept this under wraps. Don't have you or your kids go screw it up. Allegedly.
He's dead now. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
34.
But, yeah, there we go. But we need like a live time sensor.
Baby, that's me in my notes app.
Oh, God.
That's what I do.
I know, but come on, Riverside. Come on. Make those updates. So anyways, this coupled with the fact that rumors swirled just as little as 2 months after Sandy went missing that she may be buried underneath the pawn shop the McLeods owned did not help the two young men's case of innocence.
Huh.
The reason why this rumor was even started was because, and this is a fact, a couple of weeks after Sandy went missing, the McLeods filled the basement of their pawn shop with sand and then cemented it in.
No.
Yes. And it obviously...
Wait, this is like the Springfield 3. Those, the women that went missing, and people, there's a rumor that people think they're buried under like a parking garage that was in like mid-construction. That's so crazy to imagine people can be buried under like a foundation or something.
I know. And obviously it looks incredibly suspicious. Like, why would you? I mean, I would at least, but I guess if you've got a body, you got to move fast, which is, in my mind, I was like, why wouldn't you just wait until like a year later when some of the dust has settled? But they did it very quickly.
Because the body's going to decay or something. I mean, it makes sense to me that they would move quick, and it also does not bode well that it works in conjunction with the timing of the truck being returned. I think I'm assuming it was a truck or the car.
Yeah.
And the dirt in the back.
Totally. And the even crazier thing is that Johnny ended up working with a PI to do radar detection on the shop, but there was no detection of human remains. But after that, he said that some other witness came forward and told him that they knew the McLeods. They were close with them. They had worked at the pawn shop, and they thought that they buried Sandy on the other side of the pawn shop, which was owned by another family with the last name Cooper, but they were very close with, and that they purposely cemented their basement side as a decoy, figuring that if someone ever came looking for Sandy there one day, they'd go through all of this hell to break down all that cement, find nothing, and they just figured, that's fine. We're not going to look on the other side.
And as it appears, it looks like it kind of worked. Creepers, weigh in on this. Is that not insane that whoever came in to do the radar tech only did it for one portion or side of the pawn shop?
Oh, that's very interesting.
Like what?
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Well, we're like, we're gonna stick to this square here only.
But it might have just been because at the time there was no reason to think of the other side because it was owned by another family. So they might have been like, it's got to be the McLeod side, but that's a really interesting point. I didn't even think about that. Seems kind of
I don't know.
silly.
It seems like this guy was quite comfortable using other people's spaces and property to do his dirty work if the truck thing plays into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, definitely weigh in, creepers. But I'm sure you're probably wondering, like I was, how did police not see this happening and think to investigate and do their own search? And here's where I'm really going to break down the county corruption that I have come to understand about Shawnee.
Okay.
But I was going to say, before I go any further, but we can press on, but I was going to say, how are all the witness statements feeling for you and this sort of like McLeod-Bird alliance? Because I know it's a lot of like hearsay and rumor mill, but this really was what I had to pull on. And so I think it's an interesting kind of exercise in like even just detecting what feels real, what feels fake.
It's always hard for me when it is hearsay, and I have to remind myself to take it with a grain of salt. And, there could be a kernel of the truth in all of it, but if it's all like you're given, then you just kind of run with it. And it's worth investigating, especially when it seems like nobody else is really looking at these people or these situations as suspicious, because what is the alternative lead? Like, what do they think happened if not this?
Well, I'm about to break it down for you, and it's pretty icky. I'm not going to give like a huge trigger warning or anything, but it's not great where this is going to go. So just take care of yourself if you start listening and it gets a little gross. But let me just break down this county corruption. So apparently one of the Shawnee police hangout spots was the McLeod's pawn shop. And it was
what a weird ass place for police to chill.
I know, but you know what? It made sense in my mind because I'm like, I'm sure they have to come in pretty frequently. Like when things go missing, where do you go? You look at a pawn shop to see if it's dropped off at the pawn shop.
Maybe they built a rapport with like, oh, that's interesting.
And I'm sure they worked with the McLeods on certain things like, hey, has anything been dropped off? Like, I think, and it was really a frequent hangout spot of the town's sheriff, a man named Charlie Phillips. It was like he and Jim McLeod were buddy.
Oh, wow.
They were in
county police creepers who are listening, weigh in. Do you hang out at pawn shops?
Yeah, you got to tell us.
What's wrong with the Dunkin'?
Facts. The Donut Patrol, baby. Let's get back to it. But they were in the Freemasons together. They frequently got lunch together.
What are the Freemasons? Do you know what that is? Because we've talked about that before, but I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I think it was in the Ray Rivera case.
But yeah. That's what it's from.
Freemasons it's sort of like a fraternity for adult men.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yes, and it's like a brotherhood of like, I believe there's some volunteerism in it that's like supposed to be like a charitable organization, but I feel like it's a lot of networking and kind of just a good old boys club. I hope that I think that's my understanding of it. But
that's kind of jogging my memory. That sounds familiar of the way you originally described it.
Yeah. So
also, I thought you just said volunteerism, and I'm like, what a funny word to use.
Oh God,
I will voluntarily be a terrorist.
Yeah, literally. It's volunteerism. I don't know why I said it. Or is it? I see it spelled because I work in like with volunteer organizations here in DC, and sometimes it's spelled VOLUNTARISM.
You're asking the wrong person. Last night at that networking event, I couldn't say the word I can't even say it now. Championing. I couldn't. I like was in mid conversation, leading the conversation with 5 different people, and I couldn't get the word out. I was like championing. And then someone had to step in, and they were like, "It's okay," and I was like, "Don't look at me! Don't look at me!"
You're like, "I'm sorry, I'm glitching."
I'm not used to that. Like my tongue getting like twisted up like that. I was like, "What's going on?" I thought I was having a stroke.
Oh my God! I used to not be able to say femininity.
Femininity.
Yeah, I used to say femininity. Like I could not get through it, and now I just power through. But anyway, so yeah, they were in the Freemasons together.
Yes, sorry.
No. They were in the Freemasons. They got lunch together. I'm sure they hit up a Dunkin' together. But later on, Johnny ended up interviewing Charlie Phillips' secretary at the time, and she claimed to have packages delivered to Jim McLeod from Phillips throughout the late 80s after Sandy went missing. Carol Ray also stated that about 6 months after Sandy disappeared, she confronted Phillips at a gas station and basically said, "What are you going to do to help me find my daughter? The case is cold." And he said to her that he was working on it, but there were things about the case that he couldn't reveal to her just yet, which to me, I think was just a manipulative tactic to make her think they were working on it. Or the stuff he couldn't reveal was possibly his own involvement. And we're going to get into that. So that's sort of one theory, though, that this is just a case of classic county corruption and maybe some favors being done. But I think the next theory that I really want to dive into is a hell of a lot more compelling and extremely sinister in nature. But for some reason, it seems more plausible to me. And it has something to do with something called a suit party. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and I'm saying suit like SUIT. So apparently suit parties were very popular in Shawnee in the 80s. And they were these parties where judges, lawyers, doctors, executives, aka anybody that was wearing a suit.
Oh, like bring in the suits. Gotcha.
Bring in the suits would have these crazy benders where they would either have sex parties and they would invite young women who were usually minors, usually from broken homes. I have
heard about these. I have, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe that like terminology has changed. I'm sure we've got new words for it, but it kind of reminded me of like Epstein or something very similar to that.
Yeah, I had imagined, well, timing-wise in the 80s, I was like, yeah, it's like a swingers party, but it completely tracks and makes sense that the people who are the most buttoned up and corporate, let's say, or official, let loose in this way, and sometimes in a very devious way.
And of course, they pride on, young women that came from broken homes that had way less social status than they did. And of course, they purposely selected these women because they would normally keep their mouths shut in exchange for drugs or money or alcohol or some sort of a combination. And from everything I saw in the research, the fact that these suit parties went on is not a rumor. These were known to have happened in Shawnee in the 80s. And it was confirmed through Johnny. And the reason I'm even sharing this is that I know Johnny loves Sandy very much. And he sounded, in the interviews I've watched, he sounds pretty pained to even share this, which makes me think it is true and has credibility. But there were multiple witness statements that Sandy allegedly was a frequent attendee of these parties and would have sex specifically for cocaine.
Oh my God.
And one witness shared she saw Sandy steal some once. But there was also a very sinister theory that she could have gotten pregnant by accident in an effort to secure cocaine. Now, what we do know is that police hired a private investigator, which I had to confirm, by the way, but apparently this does happen when they're under-resourced. And in this case, this person was hired to look into the sex parties and see if there was any correlation between Sandy's disappearance and her death and the suit parties. Could someone have been after her? But I also just want to throw this out there because I was like, hold on, how in the world is the most corrupt county police going to hire a PI? I personally think after this, I'm like, it's my opinion, allegedly, that I think they hired that PI to kind of save face. And also because I think a lot of them were way too close to all of this to even be involved.
That's every county police department, like in these small towns, but that's the only structure they have. They're all, of course, they always know these people.
Yeah. But police had tipped the PI to look specifically at a guy named Gary J. And I know there's a picture of him, I think, on the second page as well. He's a real looker. He was a local attorney who they had a hunch may have been having sex with minors and someone they'd had run-ins with in the past.
Was he at these suit parties?
He was. And could he have been someone who had gotten Sandy pregnant and then had the means or wanted to do away with her, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And of course, Johnny did his own deep dive and ended up speaking with Gary J's daughters, whom he learned he has now become estranged from. He became estranged from them years ago. But if you're wondering why they're estranged, it's because he was charged and eventually found guilty for molestation this was in the 90s.
Shut up. Of his daughters?
No, not of his daughters, of young men.
Oh, I mean, just equally as bad, but Jesus.
Well, and who knows? I mean, I'm sure there's more to that story with the daughters, but this was specifically for young men. But anyways, the daughters said, we would not have put it past our dad to have done something to Sandy Ray, alluding to the fact that they believe that their dad had gotten rid of people who had gotten in his way before. Then there's an even more insane theory, which to me, I feel like I need your opinion on this, but Johnny has also theorized that Sandy was picked up at the bowling alley by her boyfriend, Danny, and Glenn Bird, and that she was taken to one of these suit parties by them. And his thought with this theory is that Sandy was coerced into going because Danny and Glenn had arranged for her to have sex with a couple of men, suits, who had seen her before at parties. And the boys would get money and drugs in exchange. They also did drugs frequently. And Johnny theorized that they may have picked up Sandy, brought her there, but when she got there, she didn't understand what the deal was. And when she refused to have sex with these two men, they ended up knocking her unconscious, shooting her up with drugs, which he presumes were like some sort of pharmaceuticals. And I have more on that in a little bit. And then had sex with her. And then if we go with this theory, it kind of dovetails into two possible outcomes. One is that they had sex with her. And then when they gave her those pharmaceuticals, they accidentally overdosed her and killed her. And then once they realized that she had died, Danny and his dad came over to pick up the body. They stored it for a couple of days. And then once they felt like they were in the clear, they dismembered her body and then buried it either in the pawn shop, or there's also this other rumor that they might have buried it at some railroad tracks. I didn't go down that road because I think the pawn shop theory is a lot more credible. But that's the first kind of dovetail of that. And then the other theory was that she actually didn't die at the party, but that Danny took her back to his mom's house, who I don't think was home at the time, choked. They got into an altercation. He accidentally choked her to death because we do know they had an abusive relationship.
I love that phrase, accidentally choke someone to death.
Accidentally choked her to death. And then buried her behind a septic tank in the backyard of his mom's house. And the reason why I bring this up is because recently, only a couple of years ago, supposedly the people that now live in that home, where they were doing work in their backyard where they had to dig up around the septic tank, and they ended up finding a wallet and bones, what looked like human bones, by the septic tank. And they weren't able to identify from the wallet. I guess it deteriorated so much if it was Sandy's. And apparently the bones have still yet to be tested or identified. But just one other nugget. And
was this recent?
This was recent. I believe this was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
That's not recent.
Oh.
That's not recent. Oh my God. I mean, because bones do take a long time to test for DNA, but there has to be someone who's doing it. It can take I think up to 6 months to 12 months to for some reason it takes that long, but you can test bones for DNA. They tried to do that in Maura Murray's case, but 5 or 6 years, nobody's looking at those bones then.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, and apparently it's because police continue to shy away from anything having to do with this case. Like Johnny said, they have told police that we found human bones and we believe it could have been related to Sandy Ray. And police are like, we're not going to test them. There's no reason for us to test them.
And this has never gone past the local level. Like this has never gone to like state. It's never gone to federal. Wow.
And like
and there are bones found in a wallet? That's crazy.
And Shawnee, local media have actually stayed pretty close to this case because I had the same thought. I was like, surely some like larger scale police force has been called in to look at this case. And it's really honestly why I wanted to cover
in Oklahoma, you said?
Oklahoma.
We need to call the attorney general. That's insane.
I swear to God, this is like the type of case where I feel like you and I could show up and do some like real-time investigative work. I'm not suggesting that because I think it's a really corrupt town, but I was shocked. I mean, there is so little about this case and I really am relying so much on Johnny here, but I feel like if there was more national attention on it, it could see itself. Like we're that close and I just feel it.
I just can't make sense of that. It's like finding bones, even if, I mean, whether they are human or not, but like it deserves to be ruled out. But there would need to be a higher force clearly than like whatever locals can do. They can't do anything about bones that are found. Yeah.
Well, I feel like the second that Sandy Ray is brought into anything, police stay away from it. They don't want anything to do with it. So I think that was introduced. I think the homeowners at the time were like, could this be anything to do with like, unsolved cases, like missing persons? And I think they ended up researching, finding out a little bit about Sandy and said, could this be her? And then police were like, okay, we're not even like touching that with a 10-foot pole once they realized that was the house where Danny McLeod's mom had lived. So, local media, however, have stayed relatively close to this case. And each year there's sort of like a remembering Sandy Ray story that runs on local news. And there was one reporter in particular that I found. Her name is Mindy Wood, and I think she's on the last page. She has been following this case for a very long time. And during my research, I found that her investigation of the suit parties was really, really compelling. If you'll indulge me in diving into her research, because I think it's very interesting. So Mindy has been interviewing victims of these suit parties for years, getting firsthand accounts from people that are now grown adults, but people who were anywhere between the ages of 13 to 18 living in Shawnee in the 80s and 90s who had been coerced into having sex when they were minors and taken to these parties. And the victims that she's interviewed were vocal about the fact that they had sex with judges, attorneys in the area, even police officers. And one of the stories that she told that I found to be really compelling was, I guess, a young guy who had been coerced into one of these parties. He showed up and there was a very prominent judge in Shawnee at the time who drove a car with the vanity plate that said judge. And he just remembered it super distinctly that when he walked in, he didn't recognize the judge, like didn't know who he was, but he had seen that car before driving around town. And I guess the vanity plate was sitting on the couch with him. Like he had taken it off when he got to the party so that like nobody could see his car was parked at the hotel where I think the party was going on. I just felt like that was such a specific detail. I'm like, why would you make that up? Like, that's so weird. And
he would also need a bit of like intimate knowledge that is a plate that he was confirmed to have, right?
Well, I think the idea was that the victim, because Shawnee is so small, like he had seen or thought he had seen that car driving around town before. Like judge is a pretty remarkable vanity plate to have. Like that's something that you see it enough times, you kind of remember it. And so I think he just wasn't expecting to walk in and see that person have it sitting right there. He was like, oh, like that's for real. That's probably, now that I'm at a suit party, I know these are high profile people. That's probably the actual judge that I've seen around town. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that was the thought behind it.
No, I think so. I mean, I believe it too.
Yeah. And then there was more mention in Mindy's research about Gary J., that attorney that I mentioned earlier. And many people still believe Gary sexually abused Sandy, that he had gotten her pregnant and had done away with her. And as part of Mindy's work, she spoke to several of Gary J.'s victims who were actually majority young men that had been molested by him. And they were the ones that testified in the 90s during his trial that he ended up being found guilty for molestation charges. But I don't know why it took all those years to catch him, but according to Mindy's research, Gary J would buy off a lot of these young men, especially later on when attorneys would approach them to testify. He would buy them cars, he would buy them small homes, and then all of a sudden they would go radio silent on attorneys. And I think it just further proves the point that it's very possible he could have been involved with Sandy and had something horrific done to her, just given his track record of being able to cover things up. But what's really curious about Mindy's work, too, is all of the ties she found that led back to Sandy and the suit parties. And according to Mindy, she had conversations both with Sandy's older sister, Michelle, that I mentioned, and her mom, Carol, where she said that they both actually knew about these suit parties. And her sister even remembered the night before Sandy disappeared, Sandy called her and she said, "Oh my God, I'm going to another one of those parties where everybody who's anybody is going to be there." So Mindy sort of got like real time confirmation. And I'm sure there was like a heavy element of shame pulling this out of Carol and Michelle that it was known between them that Sandy was tied to these parties. She would attend them. She also stated that in her research, she found there were several different suit parties going on the night that Sandy disappeared. And what's frustrating about her case is that we don't know which one of them she was supposedly attending. She said that a lot of people that she's spoken with over the years claim to have seen her at different parties, so it kind of like makes it murky for her. And she just didn't think it was possible that Sandy would bop back and forth between all the different ones, especially given it was a Wednesday night and she didn't have a car. So that's sort of like a dead end for her in terms of the research. Okay, which one was she at? Although I don't know, I kind of thought to myself, I was like, I don't know, the town is small enough that I imagine she could have bopped back and forth. But I guess if we think about it in terms of the theory, like maybe she had been coerced to come there and by Danny or Glenn, that she probably wouldn't have left one of the parties. She would have stayed. But
unless it was under their direction.
True. Again, she said the constant was that several people stated Sandy had an issue with cocaine and was actually known to steal it, with one witness stating they knew she had stolen some from attorney Gary J. And this witness theorized that he was at one of these parties that night, and when he saw Sandy, he decided it was his time to get back at her. Now, let me just add one more nugget to the story that feels like it could be irrelevant, but it made me sick to my stomach. And if it's true, it would suggest that there is someone in Shawnee that has a pattern. So just go with me here. She had a friend, Sandy had a friend named Cindy Terry that I guess the year before Sandy went missing had gotten pregnant with Glenn Bird's child. So this happened in the summer of 1983, full year before. And this friend, Cindy, who was 14 at the time, had gone to one of these suit parties that was actually being hosted at a motel. I think it was called the American Inn, which there's a picture of on the last page. And I tried my hardest to find a picture of Cindy, but I couldn't. Did find, I think it's her gravestone is on that last page. But Sandy had said, "Listen, I really don't think you should go to that party." And all of this was uncovered by Mindy via an interview with a mutual friend of Cindy and Sandy's named Robin, who is also somebody that's been very vocal about this case. But Robin told Mindy that Sandy said, "Don't go to that party. I have a really bad feeling about it." And what ended up happening was a botched abortion forcibly performed on this girl, Cindy, in this motel room. And she was shot up with a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs, and then they accidentally OD'd and killed her. And this, I know this is, you're probably like, allegedly. This is actually documented in court records via another case that I found. This is a case against a man named Josh Lunsford, who had illegally gotten and administered these drugs on Cindy. So it really, I could only even find credibility for this by finding this other case. But he ended up being charged with delinquency. There was no murder charge there. And that's because there were attorneys at the suit party, and they were thought to have helped with the cover up because they were there getting drugs from Josh in the first place. So let me just say the court records on that case are horrific. It states that when police arrived, there were empty douche bottles, there were coat hangers, and it was thought that Cindy had 4 different types of nerve suppressant drugs in her system. Josh's attorneys apparently made the case that she had shot herself up, but Mindy makes a great point in her research. The types of drugs that she had been shot up with were essentially nerve inhibitors, and there's no way that she would have been able to do the first one.
It's like it's so discouraging to just hear people put forward such stupid theories.
I know.
It's like none of it makes sense. And that's what you're leading with. It's so ridiculous.
None of it makes sense. And the fact that unfortunately, this person absolutely got away with it, was only charged on a delinquency charge. And
I was going to, did he even serve time for that? I don't even know what that charge means.
No, I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I think he just had a posted bail and was able to get out.
It's just a BS thing to say that something was done on paper.
Yeah. But I'm glad I found that, because I was like, it was at this point in the research where I'm like, there's a lot of hearsay. I'm like, okay, where am I going to, like, what am I believing?
No, but that's not hearsay. I mean, there was an entire crime scene and court record from what you just told me. So like,
yes.
That happened.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. But before that, I was reading this whole thing about Cindy, and I was like, okay, like, how is this all going to tie together? I didn't think, I was like, another victim that has some sort of tie to Sandy, but once I got to it and found Josh's record, I was like, oh, shoot. Like, no, this actually has legs. And she was certainly dating Glenn Bird at the time. So anyways, but yeah, going back to the administering of the drugs, there's no way that she would have been able to like OD herself. She would have been comatose by the first injection. So Josh ends up being found guilty for that delinquency charge. And I was reading, this is even worse, so strap in, that her death certificate was originally read, or I guess certified as an overdose. And then after the trial was over, her death certificate was later changed to a homicide. Which, how does that happen? How are you allowed to go back and change it without an investigation?
The way this is all shaping up, I'm going to tell you, the way this is all shaping up is that this is immense corruption that goes far beyond county police. This is so much more than county police. If we're talking about attorneys, high profile attorneys, various judges that may have been at these parties. And this one crime case around Cindy alone is confirmation of the nature and the reaction and the cover-up potential of these parties. To me, I'm really happy you brought it up, because to me, it sets the stage for one of the most compelling scenarios of what could have actually happened here to this girl, because this is confirmed. This girl is dead. This is a crime scene. This was there are court records to show like this went down. But if you just follow the paper trail all the way through to the end of the trial, if we're even going to call it that, you see the little snippets of corruption. You see the death certificate was changed. You see the actual charges are bogus. It's delinquency. It's not homicide. It's just insane, because I start to question, I'm like, when it goes that high up, who does hold the feet to the fire? Who steps in? Is it federal? Who jumps in on this?
Again, I don't think it's these tiny little rural towns where they're able to get away with stuff like this for decades. Because who the hell wants to go down to little old Shawnee?
But guess it does happen. I mean, it happens all the time.
Totally.
I mean, look at a high profile case like the Idaho murders, for example. I mean, the FBI jumped in on that in 2 seconds because there was so much media coverage.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Has this case not been covered a lot? Is maybe that the reason behind it?
The case hasn't been covered a lot, and it kind of was, I had a hesitancy to cover it myself, but I found myself really drawn to it. I was like, why aren't people talking about this? Like, people need to understand.
It's like one of the most baffling, because it seems like there's quite a lot here. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And again, a lot of it has to do with the research that her cousin has been pulling for the last 20 years. But Jesus, if he's the one having to do all this freaking grunt work to get us even to this place, that's crazy. The fact that this amount of crap can go down and it's buried for 40 years. It's been buried. I have seen 2 other people really do a deep dive on this case other than Johnny. And it's just crazy to me. So,
but what he says feels credible, though, because again, it's backed up by the framework of a situation like Cindy, where that's not hearsay. That's the thing that I can't get out of my head, because the whole time you're telling it, I'm like, sure. I'm like, a lot of this feels credible. A lot of this I believe is true. I'm like, but we're running on rumor. That's not rumor. That's the most damning framing component to all of it.
And obviously the connection there between Cindy and Sandy, which we kind of have to just believe that was true. But it was known fact that Glenn Bird was the father of that baby. They were dating at the time. And if Glenn Bird had experience with this, he could have certainly tipped Danny, or even if it was Gary J and they were in cahoots with Gary J, he could have tipped them off into how to get away with something like this. Or I didn't see any of this in the research, but let's say Glenn Bird had, become friendly with those attorneys and then police that had covered up the whole Cindy Terry thing. The same people could have been brought in to help cover up Sandy's,
Mhm.
And I also just want to say I did my own research on Glenn Bird, and his criminal record is extensive to say the least. He has charges of arson, kidnapping, you name it. This guy was heavily involved in criminal activity in the area at the time. And honestly,
It's not surprising.
knowing that Glenn Bird was involved at all in Sandy's case, even though he's kind of like the third extension of it, to me, I was like, okay, somehow he was involved in the orchestration of her death. That's just my opinion, allegedly. But I was like, this guy, anything he touches turns shady. So, yeah.
Do you think it was a similar scenario? Do you think it was a pregnancy thing?
My gut tells me that she overdosed. And I don't know. I still don't know if that was because they injected her or if it was because she was uncomfortable. I do believe that she was coerced into going to that party, or just didn't know that something was going to be, she was going to be asked to do something. I do believe that.
I disagree with that from what you said before, because you said
Really?
that she was well known to have been to these parties before. And I don't think those parties probably differentiate between like, this one's a nice one, this one's a bad one. I'm sure she's been around that before.
I agree with you, but I don't think from my research, I think this was the first time that she had showed up and her boyfriend was like, you're going to have sex with so-and-so and so-and-so because they're going to give us X amount of drugs. Like, I think she normally was like, okay, I'm going to show up to the party. If there's someone that can give me drugs, I'm going to I'm going to decide if I want to have sex with them. I don't think she had ever had an experience where she got picked up and the underlying reasoning was, we've already basically propositioned you to these two guys and you better do what we say. And to have your boyfriend that you have already a rocky relationship with who's abusive to you, that's where my gut goes, is that she showed up and was like, I don't want to do this. And then they were like, you have to do it. And then I think she could have maybe OD'd herself because she was like, I'm just going to get super screwed up so that I can get through this. Or B, they made her do it.
That's the part that also confuses me on the OD scenario, because that completely absolves the original witness statement, really the only witness statement from that girl who claimed to see her, I think you said 48 hours after she had gone missing in the morning at that convenience store, I think you said.
Yeah.
Because then
like a gas station.
That scenario, I mean, if we believe that witness statement, I'm like, well, she didn't OD. She was alive at that point. So she was being kept alive for some reason. The boyfriend is seen in that witness statement. My only question is, there's a reason she's being kept alive and there's a reason she's being technically held captive. She's being kidnapped. For what reason? Either she's going to talk to somebody or she's a liability because she's pregnant by somebody who's high profile. Those are the two scenarios flooding my brain thinking about this.
Do you think that because listen, that's my gut instinct. I could totally be talked into a couple other scenarios. I did also think that the idea that she had maybe stolen cocaine from that attorney and that he was pissed off about it, I think that totally has legs. And maybe she just wasn't even pregnant. It was just like he could have even, I don't know if he really knew Glenn or Danny, and he was like, hey, bring your girlfriend to this party. And then they brought her there not thinking that he had an ulterior motive or something, and that something horrible went down. And then did they get rid of her body for the guy? I don't know.
Well, it's just interesting that they're like co-conspirators in this, because they are technically seen, if the witness statement is to be believed from the convenience store, they are seen as the kidnappers. But I don't think it's of their own volition that they're doing it. I feel like they're working for somebody or doing it on behalf of somebody higher up. I just don't know what the reason is, but it has to be big. I mean, we could say that she stole cocaine. Not to say that that's nothing, but in comparison to like her maybe threatening to talk or like reveal something very publicly, that seems a lot more risky, maybe to somebody who's higher up who would have reason to want her dead versus the cocaine theft where like she wants to keep it a secret. They want to keep it a secret, but they're just going to internally punish her. There is a reason she went missing.
I do just want to throw out one more theory, if I may. And I saw it come up in my research. I don't really think it has much to stand on, but there was a theory that Sandy's stepfather, Jim Wells, had supposedly made a lot of sexual comments towards her throughout her teenage years. up until she disappeared. And this was corroborated by Sandy's sister, Michelle, who said that Sandy had confided in her that Jim had been peeping on her while she was in the shower. Now,
what the hell is in the water in this town? Like, what is wrong with these people?
I don't know.
It seems like all of them. I know it's probably like a small percentage, but it seems like all of them are insane.
I know. If
you live in Shawnee, I am real sorry.
If there are any Shawnee locals, holy moly, please comment and weigh in, because I need to know, like, if the tea is still the tea in 2025, because this is crazy. But so she ended up confiding in her sister that he had been peeping on her. And obviously with her sister's corroboration, it's just one more grown man that didn't really have Sandy's best interest at heart. And the other component to this that people have looked at is that, again, I know I mentioned it, but Jim worked at an oil rig at the time. So they thought that had there been some sort of sexual relationship between the two of them, and let's say she was pregnant with his child, which I don't think is probably possible, but if he wanted to, he had access to a remote area to dispose of her body. And I personally don't think it really has legs, because I think that Carol would have had more thoughts on the matter or shared more on this. Definitely seems clear her priority is finding more answers about Sandy. So if there wasn't any credibility to it, I think she would have come forward and like pinned more on him. Or she can be in denial. Who knows? But I did just want to toss that out there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think maybe I just need some clarification. So whose father was this who worked on the oil rig?
This is her stepfather.
Her stepfather worked on the oil rig. Okay, I got that confused with the boyfriend's father who owns the pawn shop.
Owns the pawn shop, yes.
Okay, because I still haven't let go of that connection. I'm like, somehow he's intertwined to this. So yeah, I mean, that completely frames it, like the possibility of denial. I don't know how to feel about that one. It seems like the weakest through line, because it seems so completely unconnected to the witness statement that had to do with the boyfriend, the potential of the pawn shop connection, some of this being connected to Cindy's scenario where it seemed to go much more high profile. Did we confirm? We confirmed who it was. Glenn, right? Who was the father of Cindy's child? Okay.
Yes. And let me just say, there were, I think, 2 other cases super similar to Cindy's of 2 other young women. I think one of them's name was like Melody or something, that had gone missing in Shawnee. They were thought to have gone to these suit parties that were pregnant. So you are now kind of, and I saw those, I didn't include it because I was like, that's going to be a freaking 4-hour episode if I go down the rabbit hole with both of those girls. But I think that you're reminding me that there is a pattern here of pregnancy being at the center of a lot of it.
Yeah.
So now I'm just wondering if what lands more for me, if it was that she was pregnant with Danny's child or the attorney's child or a random guy's child, or, her stepfather's. It's just, I don't know. My gears are turning right now because now I'm starting to lean more towards that.
I've been leaning in that direction for most of it, to be honest. That pregnancy is usually, I think, would be at the root of like what could unveil the whole thing. The curtain gets pulled behind. And also with pregnancy, I mean, if there's a paternity test down the line, there comes legal implications and ramifications for whoever got her pregnant. Whether it was an attorney or, God forbid, a judge or something. So my thinking is that she might have been more familiar with these parties. And I do think that maybe from what you've told me, she might have been there in the past. And maybe she did have a scenario where she was trading sex for cocaine. If she had a history with that, it is entirely possible, whether it was consensual or possibly even non-consensual, at one of these suits parties, she got pregnant, that got unveiled. And then it was a similar scenario to what happened to Cindy. It just wasn't a scenario where they allowed the body to be found. To me, that seems the most credible. The tie-in to how it all connects to, if it is connected to the pawn shop, the father, why the boyfriend is involved, unless he was paid off or working for somebody who was more, high profile. It could have even been that attorney. I mean, you said that he was very well versed in buying people off to do his dirty work.
Okay, now I'm thinking about something here, which feels like it just kind of hit me so I know that Sandy and Danny, she had recently, I saw in the research that she potentially could have lived with him for a very short period of time before she lived with her friend Christy, and that they she moved out because their relationship was so contentious and physically abusive.
Mhm.
So he's already like pissed off. It would make sense to me that like she goes to one of these parties, she accidentally gets pregnant with someone else's child. Danny finds out about it and is of the mind where he hates her that much that he could be in cahoots to do away with her. He's like, I don't care about her anyways.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. It seems like less of a motive compared to the severity of how things may have been covered up before with the other women you talked about and how
Mhm.
pregnancy still could have been at the root of it.
Mhm.
So I question what's more compelling, I guess, in terms of motive. If you're a high profile attorney who is used to covering stuff like this up and you are the one who is the father of that child and you need to make her go away and make the pregnancy disappear, or if the boyfriend is more upset that she's pregnant with somebody else's child and that leads to a violent outburst where he then kidnaps her for a couple of days and then kills her and then ropes
Mhm.
in his father, whether he did or not, to utilize the pawn shop to bury her, if that's what
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
But from what you said, so did they ever explore the other side of the pawn shop or no? That
They
never
did not.
happened.
Not in the research I saw. I don't think they've ever looked at the Cooper family side. I
I mean,
actually,
that was the PI who was doing that. So where did he drop the ball? Like what?
yeah, I know. It's so
Could he
funny.
not walk 10 feet over?
I didn't even think about that though until you brought it up in the research. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind. I guess I was just thinking that maybe he was so laser focused on the McLeods that there's really no reason
Mhm.
to go to the other side with like random people.
Could be a warrant thing too. Could be a permit thing to be able to like
Yeah.
do that over there. If they technically don't own the other side of that pawn shop,
Mhm.
they just have
Mhm.
access to it.
Yeah. I also tried to find pictures of it. I don't think it exists anymore. Or there's Shawnee Pawn, but I don't. It was called McLeod's Pawn Shop, and I couldn't find anything on. I was like on Yelp looking up Shawnee pawn shops.
The source of it all.
Exactly. I was looking up that. I was looking up the American Inn Motel, which has absolutely horrific reviews. Yeah, I don't. So you're if you had to give a final ruling or submit an answer as to what you think the motive was, because I think that is really curious. I haven't thought about the motive as much. You think it would be an attorney or somebody super high profile that would have gotten her pregnant and then would have done away with her.
Yeah, I mean, there are too many moving parts and too many people for me not to believe that somebody was coerced or paid off into some sort of silence with this
Mhm.
plan. Because look what happens when it has the potential, like Cindy's version, to get very messy and become very, very much a thing to be cleaned up and sort of hidden in like court transcripts or like hiding things on a death certificate and then changing it later.
Mhm.
So to me, that screams that there is somebody more high profile who is at least somewhat versed with this, or at least the law, who could be involved. And to me,
Mhm.
it is that attorney.
I think you're right too, because we have to look at somebody's pattern of behavior. And I think knowing that he's the only person in this case out of the suspects that well, I mean, Glenn Bird has a criminal record, but somebody that has a pattern of harming multiple minors sexually,
Mhm.
um, I think that's sort of the Occam's razor of it, is looking at him as the most likely suspect.
And I'm not even completely sold. I agree, but I'm not even completely sold that pregnancy could necessarily be the root of it. I still think there's a potential that she was maybe outspoken that she was going to reveal what was going down at the suit parties if she felt she was done wrong, or
Mhm.
maybe if they didn't give her the drugs that she wanted, whatever it was, and she just had no idea of the severity of what these people do and what they're capable of. I think
Mhm.
that's entirely possible as well. And maybe pregnancy had nothing to do with it.
Mhm. I still also just want to bring up again that first witness statement of them at the convenience shop. Like, if we think about the fact that maybe she didn't overdose and she was kept alive for a while,
Mhm.
I guess we could think about those two men that the girl did not recognize that were holding her captive.
That's what I'm saying.
And
Yeah.
then Danny and Glenn coming in like shortly after to like pick her up. That also kind of tracks for me. I'm like, they could have definitely been in cahoots or been paid a significant amount by some high profile person to like get rid of her.
This is it's a larger operation than
Uh-huh.
just a boyfriend's grievance against a girlfriend and it turns violence. To me, this is a larger cover up.
Yeah.
It had to have been to be this quiet for so long.
Yeah. Well, It's sad to say that we're left here 41 years later, still no closer.
41 years,
41 years, still no closer to solving Sandy Ray's case. And again, I don't know why I felt such a strong connection to this one. And it's tough because it's a case where the research relied heavily on local lore and some hearsay, but I don't think that means we can't bring awareness to Sandy's case. And I tried my best to do it in a responsible way. And I just want to extend my condolences to the Ray family. And I want to commend Johnny for continuing to seek justice when the system has routinely failed him and his family. And whoever did this to Sandy, I do have a feeling you'll be identified one day. And to the creepers, I encourage y'all to look up this case if you haven't heard of it and spread awareness, because after my research, I do believe that this happened to multiple young women in Shawnee, not just Sandy. And I think that they all deserve justice. And again, this case is not really well known. So I think bringing some awareness to it and discussing it amongst our community and other true crime communities would behoove us. But that's really all I have on the case of Sandy Ray.
Yeah, that's a really intricate web going on in that town. I could see a documentary being made about this one day. It's just so shocking that it's been quiet for so long.
It is so funny you say that, because have we talked about, I'm not going to say it because we'll have to bleep it, but S-Town, the podcast?
No.
Okay. You've got to listen to it if you haven't. True crime podcast. It's amazing. It's sort of like a serial where it follows just one story. But while I was doing this research, I was like, hold on, I haven't listened to S-Town in forever. Was that about Shawnee? Because it's the same kind of case. And it's a totally different plot line. And I realized that. But same thing, we're at the corruption level because they're in this small, tiny little town in Alabama. Same thing. The rumor mill is just swirling with things that have been happening for decades. And I was like, oh God, this feels so similar to that. So yeah, baby, if you want to do a little boots on the ground and we go to Shawnee, I am game.
Oh, I do not want to go to Shawnee. No. I was like, to be clear, don't want to do that.
You don't want to stay at the American Inn?
I'm going to take a hard pass on that one. We could look at an Airbnb option.
Okay.
It's so interesting because I'm talking to Ashley, because Ashley's from the same town where Mara Murray went missing.
Right.
Yeah, she's a local there. And she put something in perspective for me that I think we often forget when we cover cases from small towns. And we're like, how could this have been kept quiet for so long? And she talked about how there can be a local consensus, the local lore can be known amongst everybody in that town. And it's not necessarily that the silence of everybody comes from a place of protection of locals. It comes from fear. It's because when you speak out or you put something on a bigger platform, but you still have to live in that place with those people, especially when it's a scenario like this where the corruption extends from the bottom to the top, you could very well be the next target because you're a mouthpiece who's saying some things that people don't want said out loud.
I'm almost
really useful to frame that when I think we think of small town cases.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my town is not as small as Shawnee that I grew up in, but yeah, even back then I would hear things that I felt like there was an element of, well, don't go sharing that with other people, because if somebody finds out that you spread the rumor, then, so-and-so is going to be after you.
Self-preservation of
totally.
Personal reputation or your own safety, to be honest. I mean, I would be fearful in a place like this because it really sounds like they go the extra mile and have the capacity to silence anybody they want.
Totally. I do kind of feel like we need to go down to Shawnee and at least just pass out some Can't Trust County caps. I feel like they do deserve that.
You can do that if you would like.
I will do that. I will
I will be calling the Attorney General and giving some hell over the phone. I'm much more powerful on a voicemail.
Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, it's a really sickening thing, but a reminder that our freaking tagline, Can't Trust County, comes from a very real place.
Absolutely. I'm really happy we got to talk about it and actually talk through the different scenarios of what might actually happen to her, because it still is there's a lot of rumor, but I feel like there's a lot to back up. The core theory here is that she was killed for a reason connected to these parties.
Well, creepers, please weigh in with what you think happened. Because again, I think there's 5 different theories. Maybe I'll put that as the poll. But yeah, I think the discussion around this could be super duper interesting. And I want to thank you for listening to all those different theories and diving into it with me. And creepers, thank y'all for joining us for another Friday episode. We love you guys. And I guess we're going to say goodbye.
And good luck.
Bye, creepers.
See ya on After Dark.
Oh, yeah. Need one.